Welcome to Pursuit Perspectives, our thought leadership guest speaker series that focuses on uncovering insights from executives in media, finance, and technology. Pursuit PR is a C-suite communications advisory. We focus on helping the highest levels of an organization achieve visibility and really shine as a thought leader. And I'm your host, Rachel Gerber-Kuehl, founder and managing partner of Pursuit PR. Today, we have a great guest, one of my old friends from growing up, Stephanie Wernick Barker, president of Mondo. And we are really excited to hear what she has to say. From our view, really, Mondo is at that intersection of the employee-employer relationship. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Welcome, Steph. So Steph, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Mondo.
I'm the president of Mondo. We are a tech and digital and creative staffing firm. We've been around for really like 20 years, but I started as like an entry-level account manager and worked my way up and now oversee operations nationwide. And we're also a part of a larger organization called Addison. So they do finance, accounting, HR admin, and they have a lot of different consulting companies as well. So I'm the president of Mondo, but also serve as an executive function as a part of Addison as well.
That is amazing. And as someone who's known you since I think 2 years old, it comes as absolutely no surprise that you are just taking the corporate world by storm. So tell us about that meteoric rise and what is it that clicked for you really at this company?
It was totally everyone asks this question, and it was definitely by accident. It was, I was at the right place at the right time, and it was like the timing of the economy, the timing of tech and digital, the timing of where I was at in my life, like everything had to align to be able to even have been presented with an opportunity as such to be able to grow in this company. But the reality is the way that everything happened from, account manager to here, it was simply from looking at how things were done, the thirst and hunger to want to make change and make things better and be a leader for the people that I wanted to have. And I just wanted to make the environment as good as possible. And every time I had an opportunity, I was able to do that. And then along the way, I was able to bring all these incredible people with me for the ride. So it was very much like sequential from market to market, from being an account manager to then a sales manager, and being able to oversee Philly and then expand into DC and eventually New York. And the only reason I was able to do any of that is because I have the absolute best people that I work with. I mean, all of the leadership team at Mondo today, the average tenure is 8 years. They all started as entry-level employees, and we slowly just kind of planted ourselves all over the company and had the same shared values, the same ideals, the same way of wanting to live life and achieve success. And that's the same team today. So it really just happened because of opportunity, right place, right time, just focusing on change management and like adding value to other people and making it better. And all of the people around me, we all built together, and that's why we got here together.
That's actually amazing. So would it be fair to say that these people that you're talking about, your team that you started with, are in the millennial generation? Would you say you're mostly millennials?
Absolutely. Average age is like, some of them are rather still on the, I don't even know what's, it's like, I think the average age is like 28 to 36 is like the average age of that leadership team.
Right. That's awesome. So as a millennial group, what were some of the biggest things that you at the time wanted to change, and how have you seen that come to fruition as a group?
There were so many different parts, but I just remember things didn't have to be the way it was. There was just so much corporate bureaucracy. There was so many politics. There was a lot of favoritism. There was a lot of even from simple decision making of who got what opportunity to who sat where or who got invited. There were so many politics that I really did not believe in, and I simply just saw whoever put up the results. Like we truly like created a meritocracy. So that was one. Creating equal opportunity from like a standpoint of, if you do the work, you get the results, we'll continue to invest in that individual and everyone around them. And the second piece was, it was just, I mean, listen, I feel like when I started, it was like 2012, and it was still very much like go to happy hour culture, like big drinking culture. That was still very cool to a lot of companies, and a lot of like, that's how they brought people together. And while I definitely enjoyed myself socially in my 20s doing that, I knew like that shouldn't be the reason, that shouldn't be what culture was about. It should be based off a common value and result.
Right.
So,
and also that extends your hours too, right? Not that it's not fun or anything, but if you're going every night or a couple of days a week, that extends your working hours. You're still at work, right? If that's part of it.
Exactly. And I mean, so from like to a T, and it's like all the extra commitments, just like the drinking culture was very unprofessional in some areas. But we were all young, and like myself included, I made so many mistakes along the way, and you learn and you grow. But I think the main thing was just like the concept of meritocracy, and looking around the room, and I would see these people that had the roles that they were in, and it wasn't warranted. They didn't put the results and the ideation and the leadership into practice. And I just was obsessed with ensuring that the right people were in the right roles from an early start.
So did you find that you were an advocate for your colleagues, or were multiple people joining forces together and feeling very, confident together?
A little bit of both. There were some people that were lower on the ranks that were already in place from when I was there, and I just saw their value so clear, and I tried to do whatever I could to be an ally and advocate for those individuals to take on more. For example, one of the individuals that's, my SVP, she's really like the COO of Mondo. She was the same, she came up on the same journey as me. We did it together operationally, front office, and such an advocate for her and the value and her ideals. And that is what allowed her to get to those next levels, because when you add value, it's like undeniable. I mean, people want to invest where the value is. Yeah. And at the same token, the right people came up the ranks. And at the same token, all of the people around me and under me, we all believed so hard in like this new vision and where we can go, and the results were there. So it was an easy thing to advocate for one another and to support one another and to grow together.
I think it's actually really amazing just thinking back. There's definitely been people that I've experienced where you can talk openly and you can be a team, but there's certainly situations, I'm sure many people don't feel so comfortable to talk openly to their colleagues. And, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on where we are today. It seems like Gen Z is really well advanced to what us millennials kind of felt and experienced, where they're openly sharing salaries and they're just like much more transparent with each other, and now sort of demanding that from employers too. What are your thoughts on how Gen Z is working together as a team and what their expectations are?
It's interesting because I think you nailed it from a standpoint of like, they're like kind of expressing what we started. We had to break through this like crazy barrier from the people, from the generation above us. But I think what I personally experienced, like Gen Z there is a lot of, first of all, number one, the open dialogue in the workplace, like just from like a blanket statement, that is like through and through what our culture is built off of: complete transparency, complete honesty, complete authenticity. Like one of the biggest thing was I never wanted anyone to be who they were outside of work, a different person inside of work, outside of work. And like what you see is what you get. I believe so strongly in whatever you have to say behind someone's back, say it to their face. That's literally, it caused a lot of disruption. People were very uncomfortable with it, but it's how there was
like no anonymous reviews and stuff like that. Anonymous reviews and who said that kind of feedback.
It was that's the politics and corporate bureaucracy I said earlier. That's what I'm referencing. It was so much like the backstabbing, the politics, the drama, the who's what. Like you never really knew what was real. And I will say that for sure, like blanket statement of transparency and honesty and openness is there. And then I think from a standpoint of tying into the next piece you said around like Gen Z and like openly sharing salaries and everything, I think I've seen such a level of openness and also such a level of, they really, like, we have been so lucky because the people we have in that age bracket are truly like so hardworking. And of course there's been, there's always some people that come and go we learn from, but I think it's a new level. I think what Gen Z is looking for is what is happening right now. They want to be able to have equal say in how they work, where they work, what they work on. They want their voices to be heard. They want to be exactly who they are inside the workplace as they are outside the workplace. They want to have a continuity of their lifestyle. They want to have more agency over how they live their life and how they add value. And that's really what I have seen, the demands and the transparency and the change management from that generation. Like, they're just taking the bull by the horns. And this is really where we're arriving now with like this war of like, do we go in the office? Do we not? And everything that's happening, because it's a lot from millennials and working parents, but it's a lot from Gen Z as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I just remember, it just made me think of this funny memory when I was like just starting out, and I was taken to a lunch with like two other entry-level professionals by one of the managing directors, and she said like, what was the most surprising or challenging thing? And everybody else had like basically normal answers, and my answer was, I just think it's really weird that I'm here at like 7:30 in the morning and just the transition. I was like, it's just strange. Like, I'm here at 7:30 in the morning, and then I have to act this one way while I'm here, and then I have to act another way. And I felt like I was trying to be myself, but also obviously with a filter. And what does professionalism mean? Is professionalism a filter, or can a professionalism just be being myself and just, integrating into the workforce? And I just found when people were saying things like per my email, like, I was just young and I was like, what is that? Like, per my email, like, just the way, and I say that now all the time, but you're just trying to get used to the vernacular and this like way of being at work. And you're just like, it's just funny at first.
I mean, I remember the exact same thing when I did my first co-op. I was like at Penn State. I didn't study abroad. I did a co-op with Wyeth Pharmaceuticals at the time. They got acquired by Pfizer or whatever. And I just remember it was a great opportunity, and I did it. But I remember being like, wait, I have to be here every day at 8 o'clock. Like, what if I'm tired, or what if this, or like, I just remember these like little things of 100% everything you're saying. And it was like, not understanding the why of like the whole thing. And like, I had to dress a certain way. Like, I remember I wore a blouse that had like too many like fluorescent florals, and like someone, like one of the higher level individuals was like, you need to wear more like basic colors. Like, that's too out there. And it was like a blouse with flowers.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. So it was the whole it was a whole thing of integrating.
Yeah, you're being like indoctrined into what it needs to be. And some of it works perfectly. Obviously, it's been going for years and it works well, but some of it needs to change. Like, if you need to stay in the office just so that your boss can see you there before they arrive and after they arrive, well, what if your results are awesome and you're really efficient? Why do you need to sit, and it's just that kind of stuff. And so that to me has been coming up when I'm seeing what's going on about what I personally feel is like a corporate regression, where right now some big CEOs are coming out and they're saying, you're not productive if you're not in the office, it's about, performance. And I'm curious what your take is on it in general, and then just what you're seeing as you are at that intersection of what employees and prospective recruits are looking for, and what's in a job description, and what's a requirement versus a benefit in terms of like office culture and location-based working and stuff like that.
There's a few important things that are happening. I mean, number one, this is the most prevalent conversation that's happening at every level, from myself as an executive to board members to our customers to our candidates. So this is to our employees. I mean, this is a dialogue that's happening every day, and it's ever changing. That's number one. Number two, we're 100% remote we do have some of our offices. So we're in 10 cities. We offboarded about 5 of our leases. So we offboarded Texas, California, San Francisco, LA. We have some shared office space with our parent company. It worked out really nicely because We go in, like I'm in the office right now, I go in once a week, and we do it for team building. We do it intentionally. We do it for FaceTime, but it's not a requirement. There's 5 people in the Philadelphia office today, and this team is 35 to 40 people plus. So so that's how we operate, and that's how.
So I just have a question about that. So when you go in today, what are you going, like, are you going to be focused on meeting with people today as opposed to maybe when you work from home, if you have things to write or look into or strategize, where when you're in the office, you're actually going to do whatever, lunch or brainstorm or whatever?
It's like sitting outside in we call it the pit. I just sit there, and we were having a conversation for 30 minutes this morning about Disney Pixar movies and the meaning of life and how it relates to work and all the, like, it's just like connection, number one, but also strategic, intentional time. So like, for example, next Wednesday, I have my 2 VPs. They're going to come in. I'm from New York, and we're going to sit we have a hangout room that's like, has a TV, a bunch of sofas, and we're just going to sit around for a few hours and just strategize about like work structure, the next steps, like all those things. And that is really what the in-person's about.
Right.
And the teams that go in once a week, we find it is a great blend. I know a lot of corporate CEOs are talking about, 2 to 3 days a week, whatever it may be. I do believe some sort of regular interaction is necessary. But let me also extend it that you can't then tell people restrictions on when they have to be in. For example, Philly, we have people that have to drop off their kids. They come in at 9:30, they leave at 2:30. So they're home for their kids, but they have a nanny that comes over that watches the kid, but then they handle their work. Like, we don't have restrictions. It is, people want to come because they find value and they have fun and they build connection. And that is what it's about. And being able to talk about big picture things. And then you're at home 4 days a week executing. And listen, like half our teams, they're 100% remote because we don't have office space like LA. It's just everyone's all over the place. It takes so long to commute.
It's not practical.
No one has any interest in going in. And the final thing I'll say is just my thought process about it. Like, that's how we operate and this is what we do. But Kevin O'Leary said it really well. I just shared something on LinkedIn yesterday. It was very timely. He just had a video because he was saying how Martha Stewart came out and she said, everyone has to return to the office. Like, you can't be productive without it. And he was just like, yeah, that's fine. If you want to get the 3rd tier talent, that's what you'll get when you have requirements on where and how people need to work.
Right.
But if you want the best talent, you don't have that option. He's like, I choose the best talent because I run my company off results.
That's totally true.
That is the ideology to wrap up this thought process. Is a lot of these large companies, it's so complex because it's not just about the workers. It's not just about productivity. It's about the government. It's about tax breaks. It's about their leases. It's about the local economies. And there's so many complexities that go into it. So I actually really feel for the large scale, like the JP Morgan CEO is like, I don't have to make decisions at that scale. I have to make decisions amongst 10 cities and only like 1,000 people. So it's so small at scale comparatively. But if you can be equipped as a leader in this day and age, if you have a company that's between 10 employees and 500, you have an opportunity to re-engineer your company to be based off KPIs and results to create a operational foundation that allows people to have autonomy of where and how they work. Because then you have the tools, the KPIs, the expectations to be able to understand people's results. And that is what I've been finding with a lot of these organizations that have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They've got thousands of employees. They're so antiquated and they don't have the right setup to be able to understand each person's value and productivity.
I think that makes so much sense because I was thinking too, and I posted about this yesterday, Bloomberg Opinion wrote a really great piece about how companies are actually using in-person work as a performance metric. So it's affecting compensation if you're not in the office, and they're really tracking attendance. And what really stood out to me is that why aren't we talking about why certain people may or may not be able to do that, or it doesn't work for their role or their personal life, and then you can figure out how. And so I think what you're saying is really taking that to the next level, that for certain companies, maybe it really is more challenging for them, but for other companies, they are better positioned, that they can dig into the nuances, because really that's what it is. We're human beings. We're not robots, as much as everybody's wondering about if AI can replace everything and make things easier. We are still people, so there are still factors that affect where and how we work. So I'm curious, for those companies that you do think can do that, what does that look like? Is that like a manager level? Is that a communications flow? Like what are some of your ideas with that?
Well, I think it's interesting. Number one, like the point about it being like a compensation requirement. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of value. The first piece I want to address is like, I think there's a lot of value in companies if they really do need some sort of hybrid or on-site. Okay, let's incorporate that into the cost of living, inflation, and instead of taking away financial, like if it's actually, okay, here's the baseline. If you are going to be able to come in the office 3 days a week, we're going to be able to pay you more because we're going to take into consideration the travel, the inflation, the clothes. Like there's so much that goes into being on site. Like there's a whole cost to it. So I think that it's really interesting. People are using it as like a performance metric. That's a shame, but everyone has to do what they have to do. But I think that there's definitely value in negotiating based off of where you live. Like, listen, if I hire someone that lives in Nebraska, I have to pay them a different salary than someone that's remote in New York City. It's a completely different economic scale. So I think that companies need to really lean into the cost of living and inflation around how they pay people. And then also if they come on site or whatever, like 100% remote versus flexibility, there could be different compensation, but that's one piece. But the second piece around just like the whole thing around how people are using this as like and how they're able to have the oversight is very complex, because it starts from the top down. Like you were asking, like, is it a communications person? Is it a manager person? Like, how do you implement that? It's top down complexities, and it's culture around values and beliefs and behaviors and performance metrics. And then once you have all of that in place, it's like reverse engineering of, okay, this is the systems we're going to use it. This is how we're going to track performance. This is how we value performance. And then it's really up to the managers to obviously have that daily oversight. And being a remote manager, it's difficult. If you're not a strong communicator, it is very difficult, because operating over instant message and Zoom, when you don't have the best body language, the best energy flow, the best impromptu, like it can be difficult, but it's everyone's responsibility is what I'm saying, to create more of a culture of performance and having the flexibility of remote. And where do you start? You start with KPIs, you start with getting aligned on the beliefs, the behaviors, and then you work backwards from there.
Yeah, and I think speaking to what you mentioned from Kevin Leary earlier, it really is really true that if you want the best people, this is what they're going to want. I mean, if you even think about it practically, if you're a business development or salesperson, you're usually talking to people, you're often on the phone, or you might be meeting them in person. So realistically, you're not going to be sitting in the office all that much if you're doing a really good job. Obviously, pre-COVID, it was more in person, but now it's gotten back to that. So you're not going to be really so available for sitting at your desk, right? You need to be out talking to people and getting things done. So, but if you're a researcher or something of that nature, then it might, or you're in data analysis and you're looking at spreadsheets, then you might be at your desk. But then again, if you're doing that, how much are you engaging with people that you need to be in the office? So I think that it's also department by department, can also think about what's practical for their role and just like what their jobs are.
1000%. It's changing, but it's like everyone in the office is just looking at their computer screen for like 80% of their time anyways. But it's about being intentional about it. It's like, okay, even the data entry people or the people that are in spreadsheets doing the analysis, it's like, okay, who do you need to draw inspiration or business knowledge from? And how do you get in front of those people so that ROI goes back into your work? there needs to be just so much more intention with how people operate, when they operate, and how they do it. And that I think that's like a leadership skill. I mean, being a leader in this day and age it is the most difficult time, I can confidently say, in probably like, I don't know, multiple generations, to be in leadership. I mean, it's you have to serve your people, you have to serve your company, you have to manage. I mean, since COVID, like, who knew how to manage a pandemic? Who knew how to manage communications around a pandemic? Who knew how to manage expectations around remote? Like, there's so many nuances while also having to deliver results and be an effective communicator in a digital world. It's a hard gig right now to be a leader, for sure.
Very well said. And so on a related note, it seems as though, in addition to going out and speaking out about their thoughts on remote work, leaders are getting a little bit more bold and confident that perhaps they have more leverage to say whatever they want to say about what their needs are. And where during maybe the heights of the pandemic, people were getting paid handsomely, they were getting total flexibility, and it was really a competition among employers to attract the best people. Now we're seeing more layoffs. We're seeing layoffs, and then the next day companies require in-person work. Do you see anything in terms of a balance of power shifting amongst employer and employee in the work that you're doing, working with both parties?
Yeah, yes and no, I do. I mean, listen, the pandemic was wild. I mean, the 2021, we lost a lot of people that got insane salaries. And I mean, I can say like 98% of them all got laid off. I mean, it was very much like, it was very obvious how it was going to play out. But of course, like, I don't blame them. They got a really hefty offer. They took an opportunity. Like, don't blame them at all for maximizing their opportunity for that time period. In fact, we've actually employed a few other, they've come back and boomeranged. But I think the power shift, like, listen, our customers, it's a balance. I mean, some of them that have no say, and it's executive level decision making of in person and that negotiation, they just have to be more flexible with the type of talent they get. I mean, they really understand they're going to be a little bit more limited. So the power shift is more around expectation setting for some companies. But I think it's still very employee centric though, because I can promise that in those large companies, they're not going to cut their nose off and spite their face. You have to retain your best talent and listen to their demands and allow them the opportunity to deliver those results. And I think that the power shift dynamic, where it's less in favor for employees, is lower on the totem pole and not very productive and not super valuable just yet. You have a lot more to prove in your work. The more tenured and the more value and the more productivity, I think those workers have a little bit more leverage on that side. But I think it's just this balancing act right now of understanding how much the world's changed, and it's like all these levers to pull too, right? Because it's like I just talked about, like, okay, the hefty offers that's no longer a thing. Employers definitely have the leverage of the financial attraction. It got so inflated during COVID and thereafter, and so that balance shift is definitely there. Like, candidates definitely are not taking huge pay increases. In fact, a lot of them are taking pay cuts if it's a remote job or only one day a week or whatever it may be.
And is that if they just got laid off, or is that just in general, like they're just unhappy in their job, they want a new job kind of thing?
I think in general, like it's changing every day, but people are so much more flexible around what they're looking for, what they want, because there's been so much turbulence. But the power dynamic, it is just shifting every day. And what it was in October of last year is different than it is now. And I know it will be different again in 6 months from now, but I still believe that the best talent has all the cards. They always have. They always have.
That's true.
Like, if you have talent, like, talent just wins. It just wins, no matter what. You hold the cards when you hold the value.
What kind of jobs right now are in demand that you can almost go so far to say are recession proof, or as close as it can come based on what we know today, since things are so crazy right now? Where are those pockets of opportunity for people? Every
company is always going to need incredible salespeople. I mean, what you were saying earlier about business development, it's the driving force of every single organization, people on the streets driving more revenue. So if you're a great salesperson, you are just always going to have complete job security, because again, like the top percent are always going to be able to have that. And even if you're middle of the pack, or even if you want to learn how to do sales, I mean, every company needs great salespeople. And if you're ready to put in the work, and you're ready and willing and able to do what it takes to be able to add value, those skills I see, everyone always needs great salespeople. But when it comes to technology specifically, what's really interesting right now is it's twofold. So one, there was a really big boom in the past like 3 to 5 years, even like a little bit before COVID, of just all of the creatives, like graphic designers, UX, UI people, content writers. There was just like such a high, large scale demand for all of those skills. And I feel like that has died down a little bit in terms of they really find the people with the most impact. And then like on the other side from tech, it's like software engineers have just stayed so consistent in terms of the demand, like great engineers, and it's getting more competitive. It's not just about coding. It's about how you approach engineering, how you look at engineering from a standpoint of ROI and creating change management and better processes. So anything in software engineering is definitely still really in demand, but I will say the biggest pocket right now that has been growing at the most steady rate, and we continue to see the most demand for, is this pocket of analytics and MarTech. So it's not quite engineering, it's not quite IT, it's not quite creative and digital. It's the bridge between the past and the future. If you look at great analytics people, from COVID till now, so many companies invested so much in robust systems. They did a lot of integrations. They really digitized. They went through digital transformation in all of these respects. But now it's, what do they do with all of that data? And companies are faced with, they have so much data. And if you have a really strong analytical mind, you understand business, you have a knack for people, and you have excellent communication skills, and you are passionate about solving problems, like this analytic space of data science is really the bridge from the large scale data to the future of AI and machine learning, because AI and machine learning hasn't quite caught up just yet. Like there's demand, but it's not what you'd think. It's a very small percentage of our business specifically, but this data science and market analytics, like that, this is really the pocket where great talent, especially coming out of colleges. I mean, if you come from a really strong college and there's a really good program around data science or analytics, you are going to be in demand, because how you are taught how to think about problem solving is so different from school to school, from company to company. And those strong minds that have a understanding for ROI driven activities, like every company needs those people, because you can tie revenue to an operational role that's also in IT and marketing. So it's a very interesting niche, and it's growing every single day.
We're actually seeing too, especially in MarTech, for opportunities in the media sector, right? Because you've got these streaming wars, and what they're really looking for, the Netflix and the Disney and Apple and YouTube, Google, they're all competing for those eyeballs, and they need to know who their subscribers are and what they're watching. And that's just such a, I think, really strong area where behavioral trends and being able to share content that's meaningful at the right time. Everything you see when you log on to any of those platforms is customized. It seems from the work that we're doing with our clients in that space that data analytics, MarTech are really in demand, digital supply chain really in demand in the media space.
100%, because that's the way not only are they like, where are the eyeballs going, and can we give you, can we curate your feed so you have more eyeballs on more things? They're also using all of that stream of information to then create new shows.
Right, exactly.
Like that is the precursor to what people want. It's actually like quite a shame that like the art form of creation is becoming so technical.
Yeah, but it's about, because there's so much content now. So Netflix has come out and say they're going to try to do more quality over quantity, because you want that better performing content. They're spending billions of dollars to produce it. And these are companies that previously weren't being measured on profitability. They were more on revenue growth and subscribers at all costs. So it's just interesting to see, from our lens, that's where we're seeing a lot in MarTech, digital supply chain, that sector in particular. Thinking about, what you're looking at, right, in terms of on the employee side, are there any values that they're really looking at right now? For example, we saw a huge fever of IPO, frenzies going on over the past few years. Right now, it's a little bit slower, but it looks like, most are saying that with some recent IPOs, the door will open, if not the end of this year, by next year, it's going to be, great again. Curious if any of your employees that and prospective recruits that you talk to, are they interested in pre-IPO companies? Are they gravitating towards public companies? Is that idea of, getting compensation through an exit of value to them?
I think it's a really good question. And I honestly think that the younger generation doesn't understand. They don't understand that. And it's when we are placing talent and any sort of equity or stock or anything, whether it's a large company or a startup, and the exit is the conversation around part of the incentive for their whole package.
Right.
Their mindset is very much like, that's cool, but that's a big if and a big when. Like, what I'm finding with the younger generation specifically is different than perhaps millennials or other people, because they're looking very like here and now and very short-sighted versus the long game. Whereas how we were raised, our parents were raised, it was very much about the long game, and you find a good job and you're able to do that. And, if it goes public, like you hear these stories of when it goes public and you can make all these cash. The values that we are finding in the market it's so much less about money, and it's so much more about the quality of their life. And I think that startups and smaller companies have but just like myself earlier that I said, we don't have shareholders on a public level to have to answer to. So we have a lot more agility in the decision making that we make to be able to cater to our employees. So I think it's not that prevalent. And I think that people are drawn to whatever company provides them the same shared beliefs, the same values, over money any day of the week.
Given the way Gen Z has been so vocal about, bettering the world, and they've been vocal on politics and society, I think it's interesting too, because when you look at some resumes, I think more Gen Zers have shorter stints at jobs, whereas I know when I was growing up, definitely a year, but I mean, even 2 years would be preferred as an entry level. I was at somewhere around 6 years. That was considered an extremely long time. And now it's like 1 year here, 1 year there. And it seems like everyone's okay with it. Whereas before, you would be really concerned even if you were unhappy, to leave a job after a year or especially less than a year. Are you seeing, that's just my observations, looking outside in. What are your thoughts? And are you seeing more of that? 1 year here, 1 year there, and do employers care?
So yes, Gen Zers don't care, and the younger generation does not care because they're so in the here and now, but employers absolutely care.
Right.
I have to, absolutely care. So there's a big differentiation between if you're a contractor or a freelancer and you do content or you do design and you go from project to project, no problem. You have a 6-month stint here, you have a 3-month stint here, you have a year there, no problem. Understand, you come on for a job, you leave. If you're looking for a permanent full-time opportunity, there has been very little shift that I have seen from an employer standpoint of that they continue to value longevity.
Right.
And I do think that this is going to catch up to the younger generation for only one reason and one reason only. You can't leave every time a new shiny object, or you have to learn how to. I read somewhere, I forget where, it was on LinkedIn, someone posted, it was a great bulleted of things that they learned in their leadership and corporate journey. And it's like, you can't just be resilient. You have to be I think it said anti-fragile, where it's like every punch you get stronger. It's not just about being resilient and taking the punches. Like these kids, they have to see. I mean, I've been here for 11 years. My people at Mondo have been here. The leadership team average tenure 8 years. Like that is unheard of.
Right.
And the stuff that you have to go through, the darkest days to get up and show up, that's the character that makes you so strong in business.
Totally.
And that is what the younger generation is just, they're not learning those skills that are not tactical on your resume. Those are the life skills that make you the best worker over any technical skills any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been through, I mean, we both started working when the economy crashed, the credit crisis. I mean, that was crazy. And we saw a lot. And I just know that as I was growing in my career, I noticed that for those that haven't experienced that, they don't maybe understand how important it is, how lucky we are, right? But to have the career, to have the opportunity, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you obviously are going to accept situations that don't work for you, but you have to figure out that ability to discern, what's something you're going to work through and what's something that's a deal breaker. And also, what are the lessons and, what are the pros and cons of every situation? Because that's just kind of how it is in life in general. Nothing's really ever exactly perfect. So you kind of take the good with the bad too. Because I know personally, if I see something that's 1 year here, 1 year there, as an entrepreneur, as a boutique firm, the amount of heart, time, energy, skills, and knowledge that I'm going to share with someone that's going to work for us, that's going to be a huge investment. And if someone's not going to be here, at least for the foreseeable future, I think for smaller companies especially, that's going to be a cost for you too.
Exactly. And I mean, you said it perfect, and it's costly. And, I think that what longevity, it's like a marriage. It's like you commit to stay married through the ups and the downs because the same common goals and values and views and passions. And you can't, when you work through things, you have to look inward. And I find that is the biggest area of opportunity. And I think the millennial generation has really encaptured being able to receive feedback and being able to look inward and look at, okay, what did I do to contribute to this situation? And that's just what I think there's a really big area of opportunity to instill in the next generation of, this is the why, because these are the skills you're going to gain. And from an employer standpoint, it just becomes so costly because there's no evidence for them to think that you're not going to be someone that they can work with and coach and grow, because if it gets rough or there's a change in leadership or change in direction, you're going to just bounce at the first opportunity you have.
And one other last question on that. Do you find in any of these communications, whether it's a resume or a job description, are you seeing more and more mission statements? I know that's always a thing, but I would think it would be very helpful, right? So if the company can articulate their values and an employee, now if you're just graduating, of course, you might be figuring yourself out a little bit more, but at least maybe you have some sort of mission statement and goal right now. It can change, but if the company who's more mature can also share that, you can see, okay, does that resonate with me? Do I feel good about that?
1,000%. I mean, again, so we're going to be going, I don't know if you've heard of this term, but I'm sure you have. You're so well versed in all this, but values-based hiring is truly like this new way that employers are going about hiring, so they can get more clear as to who is going to work and add to their culture. But you can only be a culture. It's not, culture fit is like something of the way past. It's not, oh, you fit into my culture. It's culture means we're aligned because we have the same mission and values of what's important to us in our personal life, in our professional life. And together, you're going to then come add something to the culture that's already here based off of those shared values. So values-based hiring is so important. I find that employers hire people that have little experience or that perhaps have, not have the best technical abilities. Maybe they ranked a 7 out of 10, but they did X, Y, and Z with giving back to the community, and they've been a caretaker, and like it shows them about their values of the person that they are and the longevity and the commitments. Like that is more important to employers than like they'll take those candidates with 7 out of 10 technical skills over 10 out of 10. So they're leading with it, they're interviewing with it, and they're really concluding their agenda from this more technical based hiring to values based.
That actually takes us pretty full circle to when we started, because you were talking about changing the culture and describing some of it related to after hours happy hour and what you're wearing, and it's like the old definition of culture. If that was that really culture, or was that just kind of arbitrary things that you wanted to do so that everyone seemed that they looked and acted the same, versus what you're describing is more embracing everybody's uniqueness, and but then also the commonalities of, again, just being a person, and work is part of your life, and work can add value to your life too. So that's kind of an interesting full circle there.
Thank you so much for having me, and like, you obviously are just such a good interviewer. I mean, I do podcasts like a little bit, and vice versa. People come onto ours, and I mean, I know that you can cut this out or you can leave this in. It doesn't matter.
Well, this would be kept in.
Great job. Like, your ability to be such an active listener and take the conversation where it needs to go is incredible. So just amazing. And I would love to have you on ours so we can talk about these things and what you're finding in the market. Like, there's just so much value from the conversation. So just thank you.
Thank you. I thought it was really interesting. I thought you added a lot of, I was not familiar with like the concepts of value-based hiring, but that was really interesting. And I also thought, just talking about like the millennial generation taking Mondo by storm. So Steph, thank you so much for joining us on Pursuit Perspective. It was such an interesting conversation, from everything from defining what it means to have good culture, to value-based hiring, to how you and your millennial leadership team broke through barriers, changed the trajectory of Mondo. It's just been amazing. And just as a longtime friend, I'm just so happy to see you continue to do well, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, and you too, seriously. This is awesome, so thank you so much.
All right, that's a wrap for Pursuit Perspectives with Mondo.